multi-million-dollar campaign to kill it, the agency that would monitor the products that banks and institutions sell to consumers, including subprime loans.
Well, exactly. Obviously, the Wall Street lobbies and the Chamber of Commerce have gotten together because this is the one thing they fear, that the business that they do is somehow going to be hampered, that the next time they come up with something creative, which tends to mean obtuse, won't be able to be produced for their customers. They won't be able to make money off it. And the reason they're also so scared goes to why a lot of this crisis happened. It wasn't necessarily because of the subprime loans and those foreclosures and those defaults. It was because the banking industry packaged and repackaged and borrowed against and created this whole mass pyramid of risk on top of these little layer of loans. And that's the problem. And they don't want that layer to go away because they cannot build up the risk and the debt above what's not there. And that's why they're scared. So we definitely need a strong Consumer Financial Protection Agency, not in name, not as another regulatory body going through reports, but legitimately able to restrain the types of risks that are in products so that consumers do not get hurt by using products that ultimately are leveraged to the hilt and cause the risk and chaos to the general financial system that Wall Street created from them. So to be really effective, I hope that the Consumer Financial Protection Agency does get created and does have the power to both help consumers and to get in the way, and that's the thing that scares Wall Street the most, so you know it's the right thing to do, to get in the way of packaging things and creating risk on top of consumers as well, because that decays the entire system as well as hurts consumers.
And finally, Nomi Prins, your new book, It Takes a Pillage. Talk about the premise of what the book is, and also this issue of real reform. You call for a return to the Glass-Steagall Act, of bringing that back?
Well, exactly. We're not talking about true reform right now. When I wrote the book, it was just as after the financial crisis had been developing after the fall. And because I had no idea originally where all the bailout money was coming from, which entities in Washington, where it was going, what conversations were happening in terms of making all of those decisions and by whom. So the book is really about tracking what truly went on, who said what to whom, how, for example, the meetings between Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, who was a former CEO of Goldman Sachs, and the current CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein, went down, how the meetings between the current CEO of JP Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, and the other powers that be in Washington went down when his piece of the banking pie was reconstructed, and all of that, and how we wound up paying for that, not just in actual direct money, which we did, but also in all the loans and guarantees and debt to this system that only serve to create a status quo situation that will potentially devolve into more risk, but on our money. It used to be that the banking system floated on its own investments and raising its own capital and using, unfortunately, our loans and our credit products to borrow against and leverage up against and create more risk. Now they're using the government's money. So now we're in a far worse situation. I thought it was really important to explain exactly why that is. And the bailout was never about the little guy and never about the subprime mortgage. It was about so much more. And in terms of reform, I absolutely think we need to return to Glass-Steagall. That was a time in 1933 when Wall Street had really wrecked the rest of the economy, where the same types of practices actually that we now know today, the risk, the selling securities based on other little loans that don't have as much value as they say they have, and all of that, that was happening in 1929. It was just with different stuff. It's the same process. And in 1933, the decision by Congress, by FDR, who was a Democratic president, by a Treasury Secretary that was a Republican, was that the bank should be divided into two components. A commercial bank that dealt with deposits and consumers and checking accounts and regular loans, and the risky investment bank and trading entities that could do whatever they wanted to do, but they didn't get the government's backing and the government's help and the government guarantees to go and do it. And that distinction, had we had that, would have saved us a lot of money. It also would have made sure that we don't have banks trading on the back of consumer loans and therefore giving the incentive to screw around with consumer loans and to make them so non-transparent, because that is how they are most profitable when they get packaged up. And so dividing the landscape, like was done then, also allowed the regulatory agency at the time, the FDIC, to do its job better, to back deposits better. Now it keeps running out of money and asking Congress for more because it's supposed to back banks that have taken on all these other risks that have nothing to do with consumer deposits. And so dividing the landscape really is the only way to bring stability, to really rein in Wall Street, not to ask them if it's okay, but to just go ahead and do it. It will be cheaper for the country. It will be more stable for the economy. It will make more sense, actually, for the banking system.
Nomi Prins, we want to thank you for being with us, former investment banker turned journalist. She worked at Goldman Sachs and Bear Stearns, author of a number of books. Her newest is just out. It's called It Takes a Pillage: Behind the Bonuses, Bailouts, and Backroom Deals from Washington to Wall Street. This is Democracy Now! Back in a minute.